more than 200 years, the dream of coming to America for millions of immigrants included your own piece of land and a home that was your castle, no matter how modest its dimensions. Later, the automobile became part of that dream, granting you the power and freedom to go when and where you pleased. Well, aren't you glad that that's all over? You see, California is taking the lead in eliminating the freestanding house and the yard and the personal automobile. I'm PJTV's Scott Ott, and joining me now to consider the new, clean, green, collectivist American dream, Stephen Green, whose home and vehicles litter and pollute the once pristine landscape of Colorado. And from the state that will save us from our bondage to individual liberty, California's own Bill Whittle.
Yeah.
Well, man,
yeah, we're leading that
the
charge.
Wall Street Journal calls it the war on suburbia. Planners in California's major metro areas want to drastically limit detached single-family homes, force developers to build 20 or 30 units per acre, condos and apartments, and channel new development into designated corridors to maximize the demand for public transit. This trend started in the 1970s and has driven up the cost of housing in California at twice the rate of income growth and sparked a mass exodus from the state. But let's look at the silver lining, shall we? Bill, the city of San Diego plans to spend nearly $25 billion developing rail and bus transit, and planners claim it will boost public transit use from 2% all the way up to 4% in the next 40 years. Isn't that well worth the investment to save the planet from the filthy emissions of your selfish tailpipe?
It just makes me want to go turn my car on and lie down underneath it for an hour. It's just an awesome thing to say. First of all, you said talking about channeling people into little corridors. Isn't that really the definition of what an abattoir is, really? I mean, isn't that what happens at a slaughterhouse? Don't you take all these animals that are out there roaming around, living their lives, and just force them into these narrowly, continually confined areas so that they can be just controlled and then, brutally slaughtered one by one? That's exactly what they're trying to do. As far as San Diego is concerned, I'm a little surprised to hear that that's normally the only sensible place in all of California, mostly because there's so many Navy and Marine guys down there, I guess. Yeah, get it all the way up to 4%. One of the great achievements of my life has been very recently, within the last month or two, got to be friends with Burt Rutan. And Burt Rutan has put together an engineering analysis of the global warming data. And it's just hooey. And at least the man-made element of it is hooey. And it makes you realize, Scotty, how key this whole global warming, climate change, climate disruption thing is, because it is the lever by which people control other people. It's the lever that they've used to control other people. Because if this whole global warming thing is not true, and gasoline is not the culprit, and oil isn't bad, and all these other things, and you could drive a big, fast car and just put as much gas in it as you chose to, then these guys would be out of a job, wouldn't they?
Well, Stephen Green, these planners work for politicians who are elected by the people and therefore represent the community. Doesn't the community have a right to determine its future and to set boundaries to keep individuals from lousing it up?
Nope. And, Bill, you actually didn't go far enough. You didn't actually go far enough on your answer. Because whatever happened to free-range people?
Free-range people.
Whatever happened to that? But, yeah.
Not cost-effective,
Scott,
baby.
I want to expand.
It's not cost-effective.
That's right. That's right. It's ruining the planet. Scott, I want to expand on what you said in your opening, though. The American home, the American dream, it's a miniature version of the old American homestead or the American ranch or the American farm. It is your castle. It's your right and your duty to defend it, and rights and responsibilities. That's what defines being a free individual. That's what they're trying to take away, and they will do it if you let them.
I love that guy.
Well, Bill, as the population grows and the biosphere becomes less sustainable, if we don't do something to arrest development now, it may be too late. Shouldn't we be willing to give up some of our luxurious liberty for the greater good?
Yeah, we need to get into arrested development for the biodome. Look, this whole thing is about control, and everybody knows it. And fundamentally, it's about mass transit is mass transit because it's the masses You know, we know what kind of people use terms like the masses. And when there's mass transit, that means that the transit is controlled by the people that control the masses. I'm always amused by Hillary Clinton and the rest of these. Of course, Hillary Clinton is just John the Baptist compared to the guy we have in power now. When it comes to collectivization of the people, we've got the real deal now. But it does amuse me when you hear things like it takes a village, takes a village, takes a village, takes a village, takes an urban environment, takes a village. Because what they're really saying is, if it takes a village, it takes a village chief, right? If you're out there on the prairie, you're your own boss. If you're out there in your own home, as you said so eloquently, it's the most eloquent, simple statement. Man is the lord of his castle. If it's a humble castle, it doesn't matter, it's his. But when you're in a village, there's a village chief. And guess who wants to be chief?
Well, Steve, the Obama administration has a serious commitment to sustainable development nationwide, and to qualify for federal funding from the Departments of Transportation and HUD, local projects must increasingly comply with federal standards that urge public transit usage. Isn't this a great way for the federal government to constitutionally promote the general welfare?
Constitutionally. You know, the English used to say when the Viking raids were coming down that if you pay the Danegeld, you'll never be rid of the Dane. Well, in the welfare state, if you take the Danegeld, you will never be rid of the Dane. Washington hands out the money, and you get addicted to it, and then come the strings. But I just want to finish, because Bill took the other half of my answer. I just want to finish with a question. Why does the general welfare never seem to include my welfare?
Well, you know, planners are enamored of public transit because with it they can move people in structured channels, turning feral, free-range creatures, as Steve called them, into factory farm livestock who obey their architectural algorithm. They behold beauty in an AutoCAD rendering of a faceless species dwelling in magnificent hives. They would whisk us from stall to stockyard on a spirographic network of tubes bearing Corningware cattle cars. Politicians love planners because they, too, see us as a species to be sheltered and shuttled. You are not you. You're a mere molecule in a massive body, a minor datum in a database that exists to be sorted and grouped to satisfy the politicians' craving for power. But in the breast of man, a cry for freedom arises, and it cannot be silenced but by force. That's because a self-existent, independent, sovereign God has created you with freedom in mind. And that freedom is not a tool, but an end in itself. He says, stand firm then. Do not be burdened again by a yoke of slavery. And so the Californian flees to Texas. In the Lone Star, he sees the promise of opportunity and liberty that once drew his great-grandfather to the Golden State. But if you allow this trend to overtake the entire country, to where shall you flee? For the entire Trifecta crew at PJTV.com, I'm Scott Ott.